All right, welcome to episode 70 of Random Thoughts. I can't remember what we were talking about. What were we talking about?
Today we're going to talk about the Plyo Step, which is something that comes up reasonably often, and sometimes it's a little hard to break down with the help of visuals.
Yeah.
But today we're going to have a crack.
We're going to paint word pictures.
Vivid word pictures.
So a lot of coaches will remonstrate with their players in basketball. I don't know how prevalent this is in other sports. It's a little bit, but it's particularly prevalent in basketball.
Gets a bit of traction in NFL, American football as well.
And the idea is that what you shouldn't do, if you're trying to go forwards, then it makes no sense you'll see someone take kind of a split stance and they'll actually send their back foot backwards. And they'll say, what are you doing? You're going backwards. Are you giving ground? We want you to go forwards. You're wasting your time. And so they argue that you should avoid doing that at all costs, that plyo step is a really bad idea.
To clarify as well, some people might be confused. Sometimes it's called a false step. And so it's the idea of you go from, say, an athletic defensive stance in basketball or a preparation stance in NFL in ready for the snap. And then before you sprint forwards, you'll split your stance and put one foot behind you and goes backwards relative to your direction of movement. It's like, what are you doing? That's crazy.
And that would make perfect sense in a world where all movement is prescribed the identical pace, where nothing can move, where there is no
acceleration isn't the thing.
Some parallel universe where you can't change pace, where everything just occurs at the same thing.
Yeah. There's only velocity and non-velocity.
Yeah, so we've rewritten Newtonian physics, and it's just, that's what it is. But in the real world, if taking a step back helps you propel yourself forward at twice the speed, then that was fine.
Yeah,
it's a good idea. And so the rationale for it is that you're giving ground, and that's rubbish because you're giving ground to gain speed.
Because what it does is should we go into dig into the biomechanics? So what happens is when we run, we want to be elastic. Use that stretch shortening cycle, which we talked about 2 episodes ago, which is so important to load up your tendons and your muscles to spring yourself forward, make your body a wound up spring effectively, especially your legs. When you take that step backwards, you're effectively enhancing your ability to use that spring from the moment you start going.
Yeah.
Whereas if the alternative is to just fall forwards or just to lean forwards and take a big step forwards into your run,
and gradually build up speed.
You're soggy, you're slow, you're trudging along as opposed to bouncing into that.
And the most critical thing is that ability to go from no movement to your max speed, to accelerate from nothing to your max speed as quickly as is humanly possible, and particularly those first few meters.
3 or 4 steps really in most sports, yeah.
Yeah, and like if you're good, you can, we spend so much time finessing our running technique and that with our people, and that's all really important. But we also devote a solid couple of minutes every session to just that ability to go from being in a reactive stance to sprint stance, because you can be significantly inferior to a competitor with your actual running mechanics
and velocity
if you're just better at getting that early acceleration and
just
get organized.
Yeah, getting organized in that first couple of steps. In most, football clearance, a basketball contest where you're driving to the lane, if you can just get this much separation, just get half a foot or 15 centimeters of separation in your opponent, that's it. Yeah. That's the difference between a score, a clearance, a tackle, whatever it might be.
And that's why sometimes testing can be a misdirect too. People can have a low speed over 20 meters time, and it's like, but in the game they always seem to be first at the ball.
Yeah, and there's a bit of game sense, like if you've played your game and you know how to anticipate, that can help.
Yeah, so it's the trying to eradicate the plyo step is trying to eradicate a necessary and beneficial thing. The plyo step, false step. You actually want. You don't want to be running backwards. Let's be crystal clear.
And you don't want to put all your weight on that back leg either.
No,
it's not 100%. It's not like hiya and then propel yourself forwards.
Yeah, but you do want to create something out of nothing with a plyometric reaction. You want an elastic reaction to the ground to get yourself, because if you can get elastic at that very first step, now your second step is elastic, third step is elastic, fourth step you're flying.
Because from a physics point of view, what we're trying to do is break inertia. So inertia is the tendency for an object to resist motion.
Yeah. To resist or remain in motion?
Yeah, to remain constant, basically. Yeah. And so if you're standing still, your constant is 0.
Yeah.
And so to break that takes a lot of force. That's why the first few steps of a sprint are always the hardest and the most strength dominant. Yeah. And so if you can cheat that a bit and give yourself more momentum by taking a half step backwards and using both your legs in that split stance, as opposed to just leaning and lunging forward into your step, you make yourself elastic and you give yourself some inertia in a forward direction.
I think we probably need to have a little video showing how to do our sprint stance.
I'll just do a little 15-second one of me doing a couple of them.
Because
side on and front view.
Because I think what you do is you lean into that. Like, so what you want to do is, you don't want to avoid the plyo step. What you actually want to do is you want to make the best possible sprint stance you can have, which is take it as close as you can get to a 100-meter sprint start. Get chest over knee. Get
low center of mass. Get a nice body angle.
And so if you turn that into a skill, like if you said to me, you've got 1,000 athletes and you need to make them all quicker, but you've only got 90 seconds a session to spend on speed.
Transition and sprint.
Yeah.
Get low.
Just learn how to get into a good sprint start. Like go from a reactive stance to a sprint stance and then power off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really valuable and underutilized. And I didn't think of it. Full credit to Bill Haynes, who was the running coach back in the day when I was at Dandenong WNBL, and he was practicing them, and he was like, "This is what I was like, that's a really good idea." And maybe he got it from somewhere else, or maybe he invented it. But the concept of actually practicing getting into a sprint stance rapidly, it's just brilliant.
Brilliant stuff.
And off both feet too.
Both feet, yeah. So as in go left back and right back. Yeah. So because you don't know what side of the court or field you're going to be on, so you don't know which way you're going.
And I just think it's good for symmetry as well, just for your body, and it's a good kind of like a brain teaser.
Yeah. Getting organised early it's a skill that a lot of team sport athletes don't have.
Yeah.
Something else that's worth mentioning is in the specifics of it, your body doesn't go backwards. So your center of mass. Sometimes it feels like, oh, my foot's going backwards, so if
your body goes backwards, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, so your center of mass, your hips and your torso should stay in the same spot.
Yeah.
Your legs just reorganize themselves underneath you.
Yeah.
And again, you don't put all the weight on that back leg. It's like probably 70-30 front back?
I don't know what the split is.
The ratios. That's sort of what I coach kids to feel, and that seems to get a good result as far as whether you're actually achieving 70-30, but 70-30, 80-20. Because what you want to do is just put that back leg back a little to give yourself a little propel like a sprinter does in the blocks.
Yeah.
To give themselves a little bit of momentum to break that inertia to get yourself rolling easier and more elastic.
You're good. I'd like to do a few more sort of, because that's a really common myth, and I'll still have coaches, like the other week someone said to me, oh, you've got to be careful, he's doing the false step. It's like,
no, it's the true step.
Yeah, we should do a few more of those, I reckon, because there's a few little ones. Not today.
Okay.
But down the track.
Yeah, short episode today.
Short episode.
A myth that was in desperate need of some busting.
Yeah, and so we will put a little video of showing the.
We'll go film me doing a couple right now,
yep.
And I'll show you we'll show you what a good sprint position looks like, what the transition drill looks like from the front and the side.
Yep.
And then we'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah. One note of caution: if you're taking someone who's not been doing that, and you're suddenly starting them to do it, you're putting that rear Achilles under a fair bit of pressure. So if someone's grown up and they've not ever done it, doing that with high intensity is a really, really bad idea. If you're already doing it, it's probably fine. But if you're actually suddenly learning how to do it really lightly for quite some time. And
the fascinating thing about it is watch that athlete move on the court or the field. You'll actually notice they naturally, intuitively do the plyo step.
Yeah.
Like we've got some footage of
hard to train it out of them.
LeBron James and a couple of soccer goalie examples where athletes will naturally do that plyo step. And it's not just sprinting too. I've got a good example of, and I'll link this as well, of a soccer goalie doing a lateral plyo step where the kick is about to come. They anticipate by actually lifting off the ground. Yeah. And then until they've noticed what way the ball's going, then they plant their foot and push.
Yeah. A great example is in tennis when they're waiting to receive the serve, where they try and get themselves up so they can react.
And then they lift, and they anticipate either correctly or wrongly which way the ball's going based on what the visual cues they're receiving. Then they push in the opposite direction to what they want to go to help break that inertia and build that momentum. So it's a really versatile skill that we should just be letting kids naturally do it on the court or on the field.
Enhancing it a little bit rather than going the other way.
And then teaching them the good sprinting mechanics in the gym.
Nice. I like it. Cool. All right. So tune in next time for an episode on another thing. What have we got next time looked at yet?
No, we'll let you know.
Maybe the cheat step. I'm trying to do a teaser.
Not very good.
Look, it's our first attempt at a teaser. Leave us alone. Anyway, you'll see the stuff on the show notes. Thanks for tuning in. And,
maybe the cheat step.
I will work on my teaser game.